Blessed Shabbat, brothers and sisters, Hebrews in Jamaica, the Caribbeans in the West, to the four corners of the earth, scattered greetings. The Shabbat lesson, we're going to title it Dietary Laws and Lifestyle. Dietary Laws and Lifestyle, brothers and sisters. Alright, let's get into it. Leviticus 11, 1611 KJV. And Yahuwah spake unto Moshe and to Aaron, saying unto them, Speak unto the children of Yashrael, saying, These are the beasts which ye shall eat among all the beasts that are on the earth. Whatsoever parteth the hoof, and is cloven footed, and cheweth the cud among the beasts, that shall ye eat. Nevertheless, these shall ye not eat of them that chew the cud, or of them that divide the hoof, as the camel, because he cheweth the cud, but divided not the hoof, he is unclean unto you. And the coney, because he cheweth the cud, but divided not the hoof, he is unclean unto you. And the hare, because he cheweth the cud, but divided not the hoof, he is unclean unto you. And the swine, though he divide the hoof, and be cloven footed, yet he cheweth not the cud, he is unclean to you. Of their flesh shall ye not eat, and their carcass shall ye not touch, they are unclean to you. These shall ye eat of all that are in the waters. Whatsoever hath fins and scales in the waters, in the seas and in the rivers, them shall ye eat. And all that have not fins and scales in the seas and in the rivers, of all that move in the waters, and of any living thing which is in the waters, they shall be an abomination unto you. You see, brothers and sisters, so you have to understand the mindset of the Mashiach, the mindset of Yahuwah. Certain animals and certain creatures in the seas are there for certain tasks. You understand? Certain fishes and certain things in the oceans are there to clean the ocean and not to be consumed. But humans today, everything move they want to eat, right? And you wonder why we have so much disease and obesity in our community, especially in Yashrael, so-called black people, Hebrews, descendants of Hebrew slaves. They shall be even an abomination unto you. Ye shall not eat of their flesh, but ye shall have their carcasses in abomination. Whatsoever hath no fins, nor scales in the waters, that shall be abomination unto you. And these are they which ye shall have in abomination among the fowls. They shall not be eaten. They are an abomination. The eagle, and the ostrich, and the osprey, right? And the vulture, and the kit after his kind, every raven after his kind, and the owl, and the night hawk, and the cuckoo, and the hawk after his kind, and the little owl, and the cormorant, and the great owl, and the swan, and the pelican, and the gier eagle, and the stork, the heron after her kind, and the lapwing, and the bat. All fowls that creep going upon all four shall be an abomination unto you, yet these may ye eat of every flying creeping things that goeth upon all four, which have legs above their feet, to leap withal upon the earth. Even these of them ye may eat, the locust after his kind, the ball locust after his kind, the beetle after his kind, and the grasshopper after his kind. But all other flying creeping things which have 4 feet shall be an abomination unto you. For these ye shall And for these ye shall be unclean. Whosoever toucheth the carcass of them shall be unclean until the even. And whosoever beareth aught of the carcass of them shall wash his clothes and be unclean until the even. The carcasses of every beast which divideth the hoof and is not cloven-footed, nor cheweth the cud, are unclean unto you. Every one that toucheth them shall be unclean. And whatsoever goeth upon his pound among all manner of beasts that go on all four, those are unclean unto you. Whosoever toucheth their carcass shall be unclean until the even. And he that bear the carcass of them shall wash his clothes and be unclean until the even. They are unclean unto you. These also shall be unclean unto you among the creeping things that creep upon the earth, the weasel, and the mouse, and the tortoise after his kind, or the tortoise after his kind. Talk about turtle. You know the big tortoise turtle? Brothers and sisters, that's the one, right? And the ferret, and the chameleon or chameleon, and the lizard, and the snail, and the mole or the mole, right? These are unclean to you among all that creep. Whosoever doeth touch them when they be dead shall be unclean until the even. And upon whatsoever any of them when they are dead doth fall, it shall be unclean, whether it be any vessel of wood, or remnant, or skin, or sack, whatsoever vessel it be, wherein any work is done, it must be put into water, and it shall be unclean until the even, so it shall be cleansed. And every earthen vessel wherein to any of them falleth whatsoever it is in it shall be unclean, and ye shall break it. Of all meat which may be eaten, that on which such water cometh shall be unclean, and all drink that may be drunk in every such vessel shall be unclean. And everything whereupon any part of their carcass falleth shall be unclean, whether it be oven or ranges for pots, they shall be broken down, for they are unclean, and shall be unclean unto you. Nevertheless, a fountain of pit, wherein there is plenty of water, shall be clean, but that which toucheth their carcass shall be unclean. And if any part of their carcass fall upon any sown seed which is to be sown, it shall be clean. But if any water be put upon the sea, and any part of their carcass fall thereon, it shall be unclean unto you. And if any beast of which ye may eat die, he that toucheth the carcass thereof shall be unclean until the even. And he that eateth of the carcass of it shall wash his clothes and be unclean until the even. He also that beareth the carcass of it shall wash his clothes and be unclean until the even. And every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth shall be an abomination. It shall not be eaten. Whatsoever goeth upon the belly, and whatsoever goeth upon all four, or whatsoever had more feet among all creeping things that creep upon the earth, them he shall not eat, for they are an abomination. Ye shall not make yourself abominable with any creeping thing that creepeth, neither shall he make yourself unclean with them, that he should be defiled thereby. For I am Yahuwah your Elohim. For I am Yahuwah your Elohim. Ye shall therefore sanctify yourself, and ye shall be holy, for I am holy. Kodesh. Neither shall he defile yourself with the manner of creeping things that creepeth upon the earth. For I am Yahuwah, that bringeth you up out of the land of Egypt, Mizrahim, to be your Elohim. Ye shall therefore be holy, for I am holy. This is the law of the beasts, and of the fowl, and of every living creature that moveth in the waters, and of every creature that creepeth upon the earth, to make a difference between the unclean and the clean, and between the beasts that may be eaten and the beasts that may not be eaten. Now Yahuwah spoke to Moses and Aaron. This begins a section over the next 5 chapters dealing with the matters of ceremonial impurity and separation from impurity. Elohim spoke this to Moshe and Aaron because they involved both the government, Moshe, and the priesthood, Aaron. After 10 chapters of laws dealing with priests and sacrifices, here we come to the laws which touch the ordinary and everyday life of the people. Elohim is interested in every detail of their lives. He issues his commands as to what they may eat and what they may not eat. Right? These are the animals which you may eat. The laws Elohim gave to Yashrael dealt with many aspects of life, and here begins a section which the laws about what animals they may eat, right? And what they may not eat, right? These are the animals which you may eat. The laws Elohim gave to Yashrael dealt with many aspects of life, and here begins a section with the laws about what animals they may eat and what they were not permitted to eat. Elohim gave these laws to the children of Yashrael, not to humanity in general. You see that? Then repeat that again. For you Hebrews, descendant of Hebrew slave who love to cling unto Massa and would not separate yourself and not recognize yourself as a nation unto yourself and more so unto Elohim Yahuwah, whose name you are called by. Right? Right, brothers and sisters? Elohim gave these laws to the children of Yashrael, not to humanity, not to the entire people. Right? Because everybody's not God's people. And everybody don't believe in the Most High in this wicked world. And Yahuwah does not love everybody. You understand? I did a video on that. Go back and look at those things, brothers and sisters. Who are the Gentiles, and God does not love everybody. Right? Even in the days of Noah, there was a distinction between clean and unclean animals. Genesis 7:2 and 8:20. Right? But this may have only been for the purpose of sacrifice. Still, there was an earthly basis for these laws that Elohim gave to the children of Yashrael. The reason for the dietary laws are not clearly presented, and many have suggested reasons. The suggested reasons fall into several categories: symbolic, ethical, aesthetic, hygienic, morphological, and theological criteria. From all these, the purpose of these dietary laws can be summarized in 3 points. 1. The dietary laws give the Yashraelites an opportunity to demonstrate obedience to Elohim. Overall, Elohim's intent was to make Yashrael a holy nation, separate from other nations, separate from other nations. So it was the intention of the Most High from the beginning of time to have a holy and separate and Kodesh people unto himself, not to be mingled with other nations, because you are different from other nations. Do you understand, brothers and sisters? It's no shade with there's no shade against other nations, including the Hamites. Right? It's just that we are separate people. It's not our will, it's the Most High's will. The Most High chose us. We didn't choose the Most High. He chose us. And because He chose us and showed us to love, we in turn know how to love Him. You see. And that love and that chosen, or that pick me, right? That covenant was first made to Jacob, whose name was later turned to Yashrael, or later changed to Yashrael. But it goes further than that when he promised Abraham that his children shall be numerous as the stars, brothers and sisters, and the sand. You see. Right? The dietary laws separated the Yashraelites from their Gentile pagan neighbors. This limited the true fellowship and connection and obedience Yashraelite could have with the surrounding people who did not worship and obey Yahuwah. As well, some of these animals declared unclean for eating were animals that were idolized in pagan religion. The dietary laws help to protect the health of the Jews, of the Israelite people, Jews, Hebrews. Many diseases and problems were prevented by obedience to these dietary laws. So you see, once we move in the spirit and the mindset of the Mashiach, which is laws and commandments, certain ailments which prevalent today in the so-called black community, Hebrews, the son of Hebrew slave, would not happen, such as diabetes, overweight issues, you know what I mean, heart problems, you see what I mean? Because we would have been following the commandments and know what to eat and what not to eat. Had we followed the commandments in our land, brothers and sisters, right? But because we go against the Most High, these things occur, these things happen, and you're yet to understand. The Most High is explaining it clearly right here. The reason for these laws is for what? For your health, right? For your health, brothers and sisters. The dietary laws help to protect the health of the Hebrew people, Hebrews, so-called black people. Many diseases and problems were prevented by obedience to these dietary laws. You see that? Lifestyle, brothers and sisters. That's why I titled it Dietary Laws and Lifestyle, because they go hand in hand, brothers and sisters. Health is wealth. This understanding is attacked based on the thinking that if this was the case, then it makes no sense for Elohim to allow the eating of these animals under the new covenant. However, it is reasonable to think that in the more than 1500 years from the time of the giving of the law of Moshe to the first century church or body, there was a better understanding of what made some meat dangerous and other meat safe. It is also reasonable to think that by protecting the health of the Hebrew nation, the Israelite nation, through dietary laws, Elohim ensure the continuation and the prosperity of his covenant people. Among all the animals that are on the earth, the dietary laws began with the animals most commonly eaten, mammals that are land-based. For these animals, the rule was simple among the animals. Whatever divided the hoof, having clove hoofs, and chewing the cud, that you may eat. If any animal had a divided hoof, not a single hoof, as a horse has, and chew its cud, it would be eaten, that you may eat. These you shall not eat among that chew the cud, or those that have cloven hoofs. Here many animals are mentioned that fit one requirement, chew the cud or the other cloven hoofs, but not both. For example, the camel, the rock hyrax, and the hari all chew the cud but do not have divided hoofs. Instead, they have paws, they are considered unclean and are not to be eaten. And the swine, though it divides the hoof, having cloven hoofs, yet does not chew the cud, is unclean to you. Additionally, the swine has a divided hoof, but it does not chew the cud, so it is considered non-kosher. The Hebrew term used here refers to the wild pig. This animal is singled out perhaps because swine were considered especially offensive and to be avoided at all costs. It is not known that the pig is the intermediate host for several parasitic organisms, some of which can result in tapeworm infestation. One of these worms, the Taenia solium, grows to about 2.5 millimeters in length and is found in poorly cooked pork. This is true, right? Because if we take certain, like if we take the meat of a pig or a swine, we used to do it back in Jamaica. We pour rum on that swine all of a sudden maggots and all type of worm comes out of that pork, brothers and sisters. You know what I mean? Even when the meat is dead, parasites still live in it, brothers and sisters. You understand? It's crazy. Their flesh you shall not eat, and their carcasses you shall not touch. If any animal was considered unclean, it could not be used for food. Yet additionally, one could not touch an unclean animal, whether living or dead. Right? These you may eat of all that are in the water, whatever in the water has fins and scales, whether in the seas or in the rivers, that you may eat, but all in the seas or in the rivers that do not have fins and scales, all that move in the water, or any living thing which is in the water, they are unclean, abomination to you. They shall be an abomination to you. You shall not eat their flesh, but you shall regard their carcasses as an abomination. Whatever in the water does not have fins or scales, that shall be an abomination to you. Right? These you may eat of all that are in the water. The rule again was simple. Any water creature having both fins and scales was kosher and could be eaten. There is evidence that fish without scales were also avoided by the Romans and Egyptians. These types of fish may have been regarded as scavengers. You see, scavengers, brothers and sisters, like shrimp and so forth. Since they roamed the bottom of the sea, they were also the carriers of numerous parasites. Huh? Whatever in the water has fins and scales, whether in the seas or in the rivers, that you may eat. Of this principle, most fishes were considered clean, except a fish like the catfish, which has no scales. Shellfish would be unclean because clams, crabs, oysters, and lobsters all do not have fins and scales. Under these dietary laws given to Yashrael, these were to be regarded as an abomination and could not be eaten. So many of you stiff-necked Yashrael Hebrews, the son of Hebrews, say, we hear this message, I would not change for the health of you. Because you're stuck on stupidity, stuck on ignorance, stuck on self-righteousness, stuck on I know best, I know everything, I don't need no guidance. Body positive with bull crap. When the laws is clear, if you would only come back to these laws and apply it to your life, to your life. And these you shall regard as an abomination among the birds. They shall not be eaten. They are an abomination. The eagle, the vulture, the buzzard, the kit, and the falcon after its kind, every raven after its kind, the ostrich, the short-eared owl, the seagull, the hawk after its kind, the little owl, the fisher owl, and the screech owl, the white owl, the jackdaw, and the carrion, the vulture, the stork, the heron after its kind, the hoppy or the hoppoe, and the bat. These you shall regard as an abomination among the birds. There was no rule given to determine if a bird was clean or unclean. Instead, specific birds, 20 in all, are mentioned as being unclean and therefore forbidden for eating. The eagle, the vulture, the buzzard. The common thread among most of these birds is that they are either predators or scavengers. These birds were considered unclean. Many scholars maintain that it was the preying upon other animals with the real possibility that these animals would drink the blood of their victim that rendered them unclean. All flying insects that creep and all four shall be an abomination to you, yet these you may eat of every flying insect that creeps. on all fours, those which have joined legs above their feet with which to leap on the earth. These you may eat. The locusts. Huh? John was eating locusts a while on in the wilderness before the Mosai sent him to prepare the way. Hmm? Hmm? Brothers and sisters? After its kind. The destroying locust after its kind, the cricket after its kind, and the grasshopper after its kind. But all other flying insects which have 4 feet shall be an abomination to you. All flying insects that creep on all fours shall be an abomination to you. Among insects, the and creeping insects was considered unclean, such as an ants or grubs. Yet if there were a flying insect with legs joined above their feet, these could be eaten. Good examples of clean insects include the locust, the cricket, and the grasshopper. The locust was eaten not only in those ancient times, in the time of John the Baptist, see, I mentioned it, Matthew 3, 4, but also in the present day. Right? Dr. Shaw ate of them in Barbary, fried and salted, and tells us that they tasted very like crayfish. That creeps on all fours. Some people think this means Moshe was uninformed and did not understand that most insects have 6 legs. The phrase used for creeps on all fours doesn't necessarily mean that. This phrase can hardly describe insect as having 4 legs, since the Insectae as a class normally have 6 legs. Right? The reference is evidently to their movements, which resembles the creeping or running of the 4-footed animal. The expression was probably used in a non-literal sense, meaning to crawl, and was used of any flying creature with more than 2 legs. By these you shall become unclean. Whoever touches the carcass of any of them shall be unclean until evening. Whoever carries part of the carcass of any of them shall wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. The carcass of any animal which divides the hoof but is not cloven, hoofed, or does not chew the cud is unclean to you. Every one that toucheth it shall be unclean, and whatever goes on its paws among the kinds of animals that go on all fours, those are unclean to you. Whoever touches any such carcasses shall be unclean until evening. Whoever carries any such carcasses shall wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. It is unclean to you. Whoever touches the carcass of any of them shall be unclean until evening. Unclean animals, when dead, could not just be lifted in the community to rot, or just could not be left in the community to rot. They had to be disposed of. But the people who disposed of the unclean animals had to deal with their uncleanness by washing a brief until evening. Quarantine. This meant that if a dead rat was found in a Yashralite village, it would be carefully and promptly disposed of, and the disposing of it would wash afterwards. This practice would help prevent disease in a significant way. When the bubonic plague, the Black Death, killed 1/4 of the European population in the 1300s. Many Jewish communities were largely spared because they followed these hygienic regulations. Sadly, because these Jewish communities were often spared the high death count from plague, they were many times accused and punished of having caused the plague. Huh? Now, brothers and sisters, whoever carries any such carcasses shall wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. This shows that ceremonial uncleanliness was not the same as being as in state of sin. No sacrifice was required to remedy the condition of ceremonial uncleanliness. It was a state of ceremonial impurity that needed to be addressed. These also shall be unclean to you among the creeping things that creep on the earth, the mole, the mouse, the large lizard, after its kind, the greco or the gecko, right? The monitor lizard, the sand reptile, the sand lizard, and the chameleon or chameleon. The mole, the mouse, this brief grouping of animals that are creeping things that creep on the earth includes mammals such as the mole and the mouse. These are also excluded based on the requirement of verses 1 and 8, 1 to 8, but are repeated here for clarity. The large lizard after its kind, the gecko. The addition, these reptiles also creeping things that creep on the earth could not be eaten. These are unclean to you among all that creep. Whosoever touches them when they are dead shall be unclean until evening. Anything on which any of them falls when they are dead shall be unclean, whether it is any item of wood or clothing or skin or sack, whatever item it is in which any work is done, it must be put in water, and it shall be unclean until evening. Then it shall be clean. Any earthen vessel into which any of them falls you shall break, and whatever it is, it shall be unclean. In such a vessel, any edible food upon which water falls become unclean, and any drink that may be drunk from it becomes unclean. And everything on which a part of any such carcass shall fall be unclean, whether it is an oven or a cooking stove, it shall be broken down, for they are unclean and shall be unclean to you. Nevertheless, a spring or a cistern in which there is plenty of water shall be clean. Whatever touches any such carcass becomes unclean, and if a part of any such carcass falls on any planting seed which is to be sown, it remains clean. But if water is put on the seed, and if a part of any such carcass falls on it, it becomes unclean to you. Whoever touches them when they are dead shall be unclean until evening. From hygienic standpoint, these laws were very important. You see? From hygienic standpoint, these laws were very important. They require, for example, that if a rodent crawled inside a bowl and the bowl had to be broken, therefore any disease the rodent carried, such as bubonic plague, would not be passed on to the one who would use the bowl, brothers and sisters. The Most High have your interest at heart if you would just obey and come back to the Mashiach so he could reconcile it to his Father and these laws. But nah, right? You wanna act foolish, act wickedly, eat, gluttony. And when you're overweight, then you come with your foolish narrative, body positivity, right? Right? It must be put in water. Some things, an item of wood and clothing or skin or sack, could be cleansed by washing in water. A clay vessel had to be destroyed, you shall break. Contaminated food or drink had to be thrown out. Cooking tools were unclean if contaminated with dead, unclean animals. These laws gave the Yasharite household a reason to prevent pests and creeping things from coming into a house. No one wanted to destroy many earthen vessels and cooking tools or throw them out a lot of food or throw out a lot of food. Everything on which a part of any such carcass falls shall be unclean. Therefore, these laws also promote a general state of cleanliness inside Yasharel's home. These certainly help the health and the welfare of the family. And if any animal which you may eat dies, he who touches its carcass shall be unclean, and until evening. He who eats of its carcass shall wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. He also who carries its carcass shall wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. If any animal which you may eat dies seemingly, these laws apply to the natural death of clean animals, not to their butchering for food or death for sacrifice. Shall wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. Those handling such carcasses were ceremonially unclean and needed to be cleansed by washing and a brief quarantine. And every creeping thing that creeps on the earth shall be an abomination. It shall not be eaten, should not be eaten. Whatever crawls on its belly, whatever goes on all fours, and whatever has many feet among all creeping things that are creep on the earth, these you shall not eat, for they are abomination. You shall not make yourself abominable with any creeping thing that creeps, nor shall you make yourself unclean with them, lest you be defiled by them. Every creeping thing that creeps on the earth shall be an abomination. Many of these animals were considered in verses 29 and 30 for clarity and emphasis. They are repeated. You shall not make yourself abominable with any creeping things. It was considered highly sinful and even adulterous to eat these forbidden creeping things. In the Old Testament, the idea of an abomination is often linked to idolatry, brothers and sisters. The purpose of Elohim dietary law. For I am Yahuwah, your Elohim. You shall therefore consecrate yourself, and you shall be Kodesh, holy, for I am Kodesh. Neither shall you defile yourself with any creeping thing that creeps on the earth, for I am Yahuwah, who brings you up out of the land of Mizraim, Egypt, to be your Elohim. You shall therefore be Kodesh, for I am Kodesh. This is the law of the animals and the birds and every living creature that moves in the waters, and of every creature that creeps on the earth, to distinguish between the unclean and the clean, and between the animal that may be eaten and animals that may not be eaten. For I am Yahuwah, your Elohim. Elohim claims the right to speak to every area of our life, including what we eat. He had the right to tell Yashrael what to eat and what not to eat. You shall therefore consecrate yourself. One great purpose of the dietary laws of Yashrael was to consecrate them, to sanctify or set them apart from the Gentile nations, brothers and sisters. You are a set apart people, but most of you are destroyed mentally because the time you spend among your oppressors. Many of you are weak minded. You end up learning the way. The scripture says, be in the word, but not of it. So because you forget the laws, commandments, and statutes of thus said Yahuwah, you open your mind, because the law was protection over your heavens, your mind. But because you took up the protection, you took up the covering of the Mashiach, you open your mind up to the wickedness of your oppressors that you live amongst. And many of you got destroyed by that. And you will continue to be destroyed until a remnant is left. Because many of you are vagabond Jews, rebellious and stiff-necked and selfish in every way. Huh? You shall therefore consecrate yourself. One great purpose of the dietary law of Yashrael was to consecrate them, to sanctify or to set them apart from the Gentile nation. It made fellowship with those who did not serve Elohim far more difficult. We see the consecrating effect in Daniel 1, where Daniel and his friends refused to eat the non-kosher food at the king of Babylon's table. Elohim blessed them for being set apart for his righteousness. You see that? Many of you choose the blessing of the wickedness of this world rather than the Kodesh blessing of thou saith Yahuwah. Neither shall you defile yourself. Not only did unclean animals defile the children of Yashrael spiritually, but there was also hygienic defilement, and Yashrael was spared many diseases and plagues because of their kosher diet. You see that? So it connects dietary laws and lifestyle. Everything is connected to the Most High and to the scriptures, brothers and sisters. If only you will come back to these laws, commandments, and statutes and live a healthy, kosher life. Among the animals most considered unclean fell into one of three categories. Predators, unclean because they are both the flesh and the blood of animals. Scavengers, unclean because they were carriers of diseases and they regularly contacted dead body or potentially poisonous or dangerous foods such as shellfish, and people eat shellfish and sauce of fish. I tell you, boy, I tell you. And the like. Eliminating these from the diet of ancient Yashrael promoted good health among them. In general, it can be said that the laws protected Yashrael from bad diet, dangerous vermin, and communicable diseases. For I am Yahuwah who brings you up out of Mizraim, Egypt. Elohim had a claim to the obedience of the people of Yashrael because he was their redeemer. He freed them from 400 years of Egyptian slavery. Yashrael was also obligated to Elohim because he was their creator, but he was also their redeemer. So I don't understand this or reparation. Your enemies will not give reparation. They tell you on both parties. The Democrat and the Republican, they tell you they're not going to give reparation. The Most High sent you into slavery because of our forefathers' disobedience and our continued disobedience today, to this very day. Right? So the reparation will come from the Most High. We have to come back to his laws, commandments, and statutes, so he could subdue our enemies before us, that he may gather us and prepare our hearts, mind, and soul to go back to our land to rebuild with the spoils taken from the land of our captivity, whither we are scattered. And say if they give you reparation today, what are you going to do with that money? Stiff-necked Yashrael, the son of Hebrew slave. You're going to spend it right back into the land of captivity and further build up their system, which they built off the back of our ancestors, brothers and sisters. So you're just going to give that money right back to them. So what's the point? Brothers and sisters, what's the point in getting that? And you're going to spend it right back into the land of captivity. Because you niggas like lavish things, right? There's nothing wrong with having nice things, but most of you go overboard with it. Some believers believe we are under obligation to observe these dietary laws of clean and unclean animals today. Right? This is true. First, these laws were specifically given to the children of Yashrael, which is you, Hebrew, descendant of Hebrew slaves. Don't believe the hype that that's religion Christian. They tell you that the law is done away with. The law is not done away with. For the Mashiach said himself, he did not come to break the law, but to fulfill it. Even Paul said it. Does the law be done away with? He forbid that. It's not done away with, brothers and sisters. Second, the issue was settled once and for all at Jerusalem Council in Acts 15. There it was determined that the obedience to the laws of Moshe was required of the followers of Yahusha. So as Paul wrote in Colossians, so let no one judge you in food or in drink. Right? Paul also explained that for believers, there is danger in legalistically declaring some foods forbidden for others. Now the Spirit expressly says that there in a latter time some will depart from the faith, giving heed to deceiving spirits and doctrine of demons, commanding to abstain from foods which Elohim created to be received with thanksgiving by those who believe and know the truth. For every creature of Elohim is good, and nothing is to be rejected, if it is received with thanksgiving, for it is sanctified by the word of Elohim and prayer. right? First Timothy 4 1 through to 5. Some people live under bondage when it comes to food. They are addicted to eating certain foods that aren't helpful to them. The principle of First Corinthians 6:12 teaches us that it is wise to eat what is helpful to us, and we should not be under the power of what we eat. All things are lawful for me, but all things are not helpful. You see, all things are lawful for me, but I will not be brought under the power of any. Certainly, many would benefit from the attitude of self denial and bodily discipline. Paul spoke. 1 Corinthians 9:24-27. Yet, apart from these considerations, believers are free to eat or not eat whatever they please, and no one should think themselves more right with Elohim because they eat or don't eat certain things. As Romans 14:14 says, I know and I am convinced by Yahweh, by the Adonai Yahusha, that there is nothing unclean of itself, but to him who considers anything to be unclean to himself is unclean. Right? If today we are not to be governed by the actual rules of this Hebrew law, the principle involved in it find expression in the words of Paul. Whatever therefore you eat or drink, and whatever you do, do all to the glory of Elohim. Corinthians 10:31. Right? Right, brothers and sisters. So the laws was given to Yahshua. It was not given to other nations. You understand? So we as Hebrew, descendants of Hebrew slaves, must confine ourselves to the laws. You understand? The other nation, they do whatever they want to do. You see? But we, as his people, sheep of his pasture, who are called by his name, need to come back to these laws, commandments, and statutes. Deuteronomy 14. Ye are the children of Yahuwah, your Elohim. Ye shall not cut yourselves nor make any baldness between your eyes or for the dead. For thou art an holy people unto Yahuwah thy Elohim, and Yahuwah had chosen thee to be a peculiar people unto himself above all nations. See, there you go again. Above all nations, brothers and sisters, you were chosen and put above all nations. But because we disobeyed the Most High Yahuwah and his Holy Son Yahushua and his commandments, we became lower than other nations, but only temporarily, only for a while. I know, brothers and sisters, the struggles are long, the struggles are hard, but you have to remember the Most High timeline is not our timeline, because the Most High said 1,000 years is about like one day, and one day about like 1,000 in his sight. Right? So we got to be patient and endure to the end that we might be saved. We got to endure. And we need to blame ourselves because of our stiff-necked ways and continual disobedience. This could be over in one day, you know, brother. This what we're going through can be eradicated overnight if we just come back to the commandment as a people. Overnight, this would end. The suffering and the curse would end overnight, brothers and sisters. But will you choose? Will you change? Will you choose the Most High? Or will you choose the world? Choose ye this day whom shall ye serve, Elohim or Mammon, brothers and sisters. And most of you will choose Mammon. Thou shalt not eat any abominable thing. These are the beasts which ye shall eat, the ox, and the sheep, and the goat, the hart, and the roebuck, and the fallow deer, and the wild goat, and the pygar, and the wild ox, and the chamois, and every beast that parteth the hoof and cleaveth the cleft into two claws, and throweth the cud among the beasts that he shall eat. Nevertheless, these ye shall not eat of them that chew the cud, or of them that divide the cloven hoof, as the camel and the Hari and the Coney, for they chew the cud, but divide not the hoof. Therefore they are unclean unto you. And the swine, because it divided the hoof, yet cheweth not the cud, it is unclean unto you. Ye shall not eat of their flesh, nor touch their dead carcass. These are ye shall eat of that which are in the waters, and ye shall have fins and scales shall ye eat, and whatsoever hath not fins and scales ye may not eat. It is unclean unto you. All clean birds ye shall eat, but these are they of which ye shall not eat: the eagle, the osprey, and the offspring, and the gledy, and the kit, and the vulture after his kind, and every raven and his kind, and the owl, and the night hawk, and the cuckoo, or the cuckoo, and the hawk after his kind, the little owl, and the great owl, and the swan, the pelican, and the great eagle, and the cormorant, and the stork, and the heron after her kind, and the lapwing, and the bat, and every creeping thing that flight is unclean unto you. They shall not be eaten, but of all clean fowls ye may eat. Ye shall not eat of anything that died of itself. Thou shalt give it unto the stranger that is in thy gate, that he may eat it, or thou may sell it unto an alien, for thou art an holy people unto Yahuwah thy Elohim. Thou shalt not seethe a kid in his mother's milk. Thou shalt truly tithe all the increase of thy seed that the field bringeth forth year by year. You see, tithe, always the tithing, the system of tithing always points to what? Food, not money. Food. Thou shalt eat before Yahuwah thy Elohim in the place which he shall choose to place his name there. The tithe of thy corn, see there go again, tithing. The tithe of thy corn, portion, tithing of thy corn, of thy wine, of thine oil, and the firstlings of thy herd, and of thy flocks, that thou mayest learn to fear Yahuwah thy Elohim always. Because what's the purpose of the tithing of the food, brothers and sisters, bringing to the temple? Some of it for sacrifice, and also some of it is for distribution to the poor among Yisrael. That's the reason, brothers and sisters. Not tithing to give to your pastor pork chop and prosperity teachers, and they say sword the smooth talkers to put in their pockets so they could build lavish houses, lavish so-called churches, and buy and in nice suits and fancy cars, and you yourself can't even pay your own bill when time the billman come knocking on your door. He's knocking on your door, you can't pay your bill because you give passport up all your money. Right? Right, brothers and sisters? Is that what's going on, right? Huh? And thou shalt eat before Yahuwah thy Elohim in the place which ye shall choose to place his name there. The tithe of thy corn, and of thy wine, and of thine oil, and of the firstling of thy herds, and of thy flocks, that thou mayest learn to fear Yahuwah thy Elohim always. And if the way be too long for thee, so that thou art not able to carry it, or if the place be too far from thee, which Yahuwah thy Elohim shall choose to set his name there, when Yahuwah thy Elohim has blessed thee, then shalt thou turn it into money, and bind by the money in thine hand, and shall go into the place which Yahuwah thy Elohim choose. You see that? That's the only time when it changes into money, when you cannot make the trip to Jerusalem to bring your offering unto the Most High. Then you sell it, and turn it into a form of monetary, and then you might either send it with someone going, or You make arrangement, brothers and sisters. Right? And thou shalt bestow thy money for whatsoever thy soul lusted after, for ox, or for sheep, or for wine, or for strong drink, or for whatever thy soul desire, and thou shalt eat there before Yahweh thy Elohim. Thou shalt rejoice, and thou and thine house. And the Levite that is within thy gates, thou shalt not forsake him, for he had no part nor inheritance with thee. And at the end of 3 years thou shalt bring forth all the tithe of thine increase the same year, and shall lay it upon within the gates. You see that? And the Levite, because he had no part nor inheritance with thee, and the stranger and the fatherless and the widow which are within thy gates shall come and shall eat and be satisfied, that Yahweh thy Elohim may bless thee in all the works of thy hand which thou doest. So you see, the Most High is explaining the reasons for tithing is to what? The Levites had to get theirs because Levites are priesthood tribe. They don't have no inheritance. Their inheritance is with the Most High. Right? And the strangers, right? And the fatherless and the widows within the gates, those people don't have no covering, no protection. So the people of Yeshua protect these people. You understand? By pulling their tithing and giving food to them, that they may survive, brothers and sisters. That's the purpose of it. You see. But today tithing is out of proportion. It's like a money gaining business, brothers and sisters. You see. Yes, it's a money gaining business where this pastor poacher convince you to give your hard earned money. You understand? And not do nothing for the people and the community. You understand? They tell you to worship on the wrong day. They tell you that the laws are done away with. They mock and jeer you because you want to keep the laws, commandments, and standards of thus said Yahuwah. Even in your own family, they will mock and jeer you, brothers and sisters. But the scripture said, you know, it's better to love the Most High. You know what I mean? Rather to love the Most High than others, brothers and sisters. You understand? It's better to put the Most High first than your family. You know what I mean? Alright, let's go to the scriptures right quick, brothers and sisters. Okay, brothers and sisters, let's turn our chapter scriptures to Matthew 10, 37, 16, 11 KJV. Right? He that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he that loveth son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me, brothers and sisters. Let me repeat it again. Matthew 10, 37, 16, 11 KJV. He that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he that loveth son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. The Most High is telling you that, you know, it's not that you cannot love your father and your mother. You should love them, because one of the commandments, you know what I mean, is honor thy father and thy mother. And in doing so, honor your father and mother, that's showing love and respect. But if that love and respect trump the love of the father, then you have a problem. Because like he says right here, he that loveth father or mother more than me, which is the me is the Most High, is not worthy of me, which is the Most High Yahuwah. Huh? And he that loveth son or daughter more than me, which is the Most High, is not worthy of me, which is the Most High Yahuwah, and his Holy Son Yahusha, and Mashiach, brothers and sisters. So, you know what I mean? Be in the word, but not of the word. Put the Most High above everything, above your family, above your friends, brothers and sisters. And trust Yahuwah in Yahusha Mashiach's name, and keep his laws, commandments, and statutes, because that's the only thing that will reconcile us back to him in Yahusha Mashiach's name. And this is the only way and avenue we must and should take and will take in order for this curse to be lifted, that the Most High may prepare our hearts, mind, and soul to enter into eternal rest and into the promised land of our forefathers, to go and rebuild and establish our righteousness once again, where we supposed to be in the beginning, had we just obeyed and keep the laws, commandments, and statutes. Alright? Baruch atah Yahuwah, Tizvahot Baruch atah Yahushua Mashiach, Baruch atah Adonai. Shalom.